Of her talk is the end of the purity of blood in the Portuguese world and the unsuccessful background investigations in the 18th century, new approaches. Thank
you. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers, especially to Claude, but also to the institutions that are hosting us and to the sponsors. I'm going to speak about an ongoing project on the familiares of the Portuguese Inquisition. To join the staff of the Portuguese Inquisition, it is necessary to be successful in background investigations, named habilitações in Portuguese or pruebas expedientes in the case of Castilian Inquisition. This process usually have 5 steps, as you can see here, and it is approved in the Portuguese case by the Conselho Geral. That means it is a centralized decision and it is not approved in the local tribunals as it is done in the case of the Spanish Inquisition. In this process, the candidate must prove he has only these requirements to join the Inquisition. The candidates, their father and mother and grandfathers and the 4 grandfathers. It is very interesting to have an idea how much persons cannot join the Inquisition because they don't have the requirements for the post. It is really difficult to have an idea. There is a book in the Portuguese Inquisition about the situations of the unsuccessful candidates, but it's for a limited period of time and it is not easy to analyze it. I find in the Portuguese archives a list of excludes from the Inquisition of Évora, and I'm looking for to the similar list for the other tribunals. If you find it, please let me know. This list is very important because it's possible to join the data for other documents, and it's very important because we can have an idea for an important period of the 18th century in Portugal. The objectives of my presentation is this 4-1. Almost all I would like to analyze who is excluded and why this list has been organized. We need to go to the 60s in the 18th century to understand the question. At that time, the Portuguese Inquisition is changing a little bit about the purity of blood, and allow requests to destroy the lists of who paid for a general pardon, especially the most important one, that is the pardon of the beginning of the 17th century in 1605. At that time, they make lists of new Christians that pay the tax. And these books are very important because it's a proof of that someone is new Christian. And at the end of the 18th century, the idea is to destroy these books. They are, it is the Inquisition who is the entity responsible for this new law, and the books usually are, it's not easy to see the books. In theory, they are only in this place, they are kept in this tribunal, but really speaking, there are persons that have copies, especially commissarios of the Inquisition. They have copies, and it's a way to accuse someone that he doesn't have the good ancestors, because he have a grandfather or a grandmother that have paid tax for being new Christian. At that time, it is important to know that in the Portuguese Inquisition, in Conselho Geral, it is the brother, there is no Inquisitor General, because during 10 years there is no relations with diplomatic relations between Portugal and Rome, and the Marquês de Pombal put her brother as a member of the Conselho Geral, and he's going to have more and more power. It's very interesting. Her brother is an ecclesiastic that starts his career in the Inquisition by the top. So it is something that is not normal, because usually the persons arrive to the Conselho Geral after years being inquisitor in a tribunal of the Inquisition. And it is in that time when Paulo António de Carvalho e Mendonça is the most important member of Conselho Geral, that things are going to change significantly in that years. As you can see, when the list is organized, he is the most important one in the Conselho Geral, and the others are also new members in the Conselho. This one also start the career by this post, and not as usually from bottom up. The Inquisition is organizing how to collect the books of vintage, and use the network of the Inquisition to realize this task. To change the purity of blood, it is also necessary to make some tasks inside the Inquisition, but we are going to start by the situation out the tribunals. The Inquisition at that time has a very well-organized network of commissarios that is a little bit with a good density in some place, and also in the empire. And are commissarios, the most important persons performing this task. We have an idea of the situation in the south of Portugal. The Inquisition sent letters to the commissarios for all these places to collect these documents, and also to see if in the genealogical books that circulate locally there is information about vintage. As you can see, it is also the commissarios that do the same task in the empire, and there is strong recommendations about this task. all omission or will be punished. We have an idea how work this commissario in Brazil. He writes, receiving the documents of the Inquisition of Lisbon, he writes to all these persons, and he finds at the archive of the convent of San Francisco in Olinda, he finds a roll of fintados from Bahia that he sent to the Inquisition of Lisbon. Other could not find nothing. It is the case of Rio. At Funchal it was also easy to find a lista of fintados, and the commissarios of Funchal have many copies of this document. Açores, they could not find nothing. There is nothing. Inside the tribunals, it was also necessary to revise some applications, because most of them, many of them, have been interrupted because they discover that the person, the candidate, has problems. That means when they start the application, and in general they just do these 2 steps, and it is normally the local tribunal that starts at until this point the application. And what the Conselho Geral is requesting is to revise all the applications in that point. But in 1769, another change also is going to create more one task more. Also the necessity of revising the application. This is this law that established the Inquisition is now a royal tribunal, and all applications must have the previous information of the king must be informed about each process. That means this document creates a new step for an application. This is the same of the military orders. In the application of the military orders, the king, as master of the order, must have an information about the processes. And it is to introduce the same thing about in the Inquisition. As you can see, this is the applications for all tribunals in the 18th century. As you can see, they realize many, especially in that year. And the Lisbon earthquake introduced a break in the processes, but after there are many people trying to join the Inquisition, especially as familiar. If we compare what is the number of new processes done by the Inquisition of Évora, as you can see, it is the smallest tribunal because the south has less population than the north of Portugal. Here we have all the suspend applications at that color in red. We have the suspend application of the Inquisition of Évora. That means the tribunal need to revise all these applications, and that's why he it is necessary to organize the list as we are speaking about. To have an idea, it represents 16% of the work of the Inquisition between that date. This list is from these dates. They make an inventory of all the processes they have from all these years. What is the reason for exclusions if we analyze the lists? Of course, almost in general, it's New Christian origin. We are speaking about the 18th century, and the percentage is higher. And it's also surprising the name of a case of mulatto blood. It is also important. In the south, there are many cases of mulatto blood. As you can see, 10% only are like this kind of situations. But in general, it's New Christian origin, and globally speaking, questions of blood that create these unsuccessful situations. The localities of the highest number of unimproved applications is Évora, and then Évora. That is very interesting, because if we compare with the accused, where live the most, the highest number of accused in general is Beja and Vila Viçosa. It is in this year the highest number are in these two cities. Sorry. And if we analyze the density of the network, it is surprising, but Elvas has a big, traditionally Évora and Elvas has many new familiares in all periods of the Inquisition and also in that period. That means to be accused is the accused belongs to one place, but the unsuccessful candidates from other places. Some of the persons from this list, when they revised, they died some years ago, and it is possible in the case if the Conselho Geral of the Inquisition decide the person has a good situation to continue, the processes must continue in the beginning of the 60s. And they find there are many persons that at the end of the 18th century, they finally receive the habit of familiar of the Inquisition. But others died, and it's possible for the family to continue the processes. And it is interesting because the Inquisition still continues excluding persons at that time, especially who has an ancestor with problems with the Inquisition. Someone that has that has been accused by the Inquisition has no opportunities in the end of the 60s of the 18th century. But the Inquisition is also excluding in the 70s by other reasons, like the case you have here. In conclusion, I just want to stress some points. This institution changed by the power of the crown. It is the crown, the king imposing, or better than the king, Marquês de Pombal, imposing a change inside the Inquisition. But this change is not it's not difficult inside, because things has been reorganized before. And this situation is going to end with the end of the purity of blood in the 1763, but this situation has no connections with the new ideas coming from France to Portugal, and the ideas is almost all to put the crown as controlling more the Inquisition and controlling the way of the Inquisition is creating social classifications. But the purity of law is going to end in 73, but it continues in another way. It's possible in the beginning of the 18th century. It's easy to find some person excluded from a marriage because their father and grandfather has New Christian origins. But it is a very interesting moment to prepare the change of 63, this list. Thank you.
The floor is open.